Welcome everyone to 2021's first COVID Conversations webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. It's 2 o'clock, so we're gonna get right on started. And today we have with us our featured institution, you'll see, is West Georgia Tech. So quick agenda, we will run through some introductions. We'll proceed with the interview with Ms. Crockett, who is our featured speaker. And I'll do a quick plug for our feedback survey. And then we'll open up the last 15 minutes or so for audience Q&A. So as you're listening, please, if you have questions, put those into the chat and let us know what questions you have, because we would really be happy to field those at the end. So let's start off with what is Upswing. For anyone who is hopping on who hasn't really heard of us or doesn't know, Upswing was founded in 2013, and we are an integrated student services platform focused on non-traditional student retention and engagement. So we provide these services to colleges and universities of all kinds across the United States, and that includes things like online advising, tutoring, writing support, and you may have heard we just started this month our mental wellness support module as well. So that's really exciting. And we have an SMS-based engagement tool as well. We've helped over 100 institutions extend their services online. And you're going to hear a little bit about how one of our partners is using Upswing today. Which brings me to our featured institution, which is West Georgia Technical College. And today we have with us Ms. Kimberly Crockett, who is the coordinator of student success and has been an Upswing partner since 2015. So we're really excited to have you on today, Kim. And I know everyone who's listening is also really looking forward to hearing everything you have to share. So
glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in. So let's start with a little bit of background first. What did West Georgia Tech look like when COVID first hit? And what really ended up happening for the rest of that spring semester? I know it feels like a long time ago now.
Yeah, it does. Let me go for a little bit of background about West Georgia Tech so you can sort of figure out what kind of school we are. We are part of the technical system of Georgia, and there are 22 colleges as part of the system. We are located in somewhat of a rural area. There are 5 campuses involved at our school. There's anywhere between 32 to 68 miles apart between the campuses. Summer or spring semester 2020 enrollment was around 6,700 students. We had been offering in-person tutoring, which normally about 300 or 400 students would complete sessions each month, and that's including all 5 campuses. We also offered face-to-face advising, and that which included anywhere between probably maybe 200 sessions per campus per semester. And we also offered the face-to-face tutoring for like math. We had math labs, we had writing labs, we had an accounting tutors, we had computer application labs, we had computer information system labs, we had biology tutors, chemistry, and most of the other sciences. So that's what we looked like before the pandemic.
So really good. Yeah.
The pandemic hit us around March 16th, was when that was the beginning of our campus closures. And that week, we were all just scrambling because we really didn't know what to do. We had already been partners with Upswing for several years, and I knew that Upswing could be used to, help communicate with students, especially during such a strenuous time. So our leadership team got together, and we were able to move pretty much all of advising and tutoring on to the Upswing platform by March 23rd. It took a little bit of us time because we also had to have VPN installed on our laptops. So that was some technical background on our end that we had to get done. But we were up and running within a week. We started advising students on that Monday, and students were immediately making appointments because they were already used to using Upswing for a tutoring resource. So when advising was added, it was great. Um, and it was pretty much all hands on deck. We called ourselves the A team
Oh
because
yeah.
we had so many students with, because we just didn't know, what was going to happen. Um, we were all able to work from home. Sometimes they were really long days, so we were able to um, say take a break during the day, and then somebody would come in and work the evening hours. We had never done that before. We did offer advising up to 9 p.m. at night, and it did work. Students, the hours between 7 to 8 were very popular with students. Our Western Tech tutors were added maybe about a week later, and they were now making appointments also. So we had the option of, like, a student would log in for help with math, they could see a friendly face. They said, "Oh, there's Mr. Arnold, our math tutor." So that was able to, make the students more supportive. And we were pretty much up and running in less than a week.
Wow, that's really awesome. So it sounds like, the transition may have been made easier just because you had the Upswing platform in there already. Was there anything else that kind of led you guys to adopt the advising module since you didn't have it previously? Is that correct?
Right. We were, we previously, we never even thought about using the advising module because we were just, thinking about the tutoring. But the CEO had reached out to all the partners, and Western Tech was one of them, and did offer that platform for free. So we were real quickly to jump on that opportunity. We had already had the training modules to train the tutors, so we just used the same modules for the advisors.
Awesome. Yeah, that totally makes sense. So I know several colleges actually had some difficulties in moving online, and you just said you guys got uh, moved on in just a week. So if timing wasn't the biggest challenge, what were some of the biggest difficulties that you dealt with in 2020?
Um, probably probably making, getting the faculty to buy in. I think that took a little bit of time because they were just as concerned about what would happen. They use all different kinds of platforms too. They can use anything in Blackboard, um, WebEx or whatever. But with students already being in Upswing, it was just a no-brainer for them to also use the system. That was probably one of the hardest things to get them to be able to migrate onto Upswing. But now you know there's not an issue.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Faculties always, since they have so many processes already, it can definitely be a challenge. Um, And I guess what were some of the things that made it easier for faculty to get on board when they were able to?
Um, the training videos, to be honest, the training was very easy. The platform is very friendly. They were able to, put their schedule hours when they were able to talk with students. The math faculty absolutely love it, and I don't know why. Just because it's made it's very logical type platform. It's very easy to use. Um, that was pretty much just dealing with. It just wasn't. It's just it really wasn't that difficult.
That's great. So now your department, right? You're in student success. What did you guys end up doing to adapt the student experience to be successful last semester once we kind of had a handle on, what COVID was going to look like and had to make those changes?
My department, well, student success, we're sort of part of our department is academic advising and student success, so we're sort of interchangeably. Um, we did a lot of marketing, and a lot of friendly marketing. We're sending text messages, sending. We had these 10 feet posters or banners made, which they hung at the entrance of every campus. Um, we we did flex the hours, so we were able to have some, like I said, most times advisors are only, here from 8 to 5, but because we were at home, we were able to flex hours and, you could take a break during the middle of the day and then you would own upswing at like 8 o'clock at night. So, um, and we were very successful in adapting. It's just not having that, giving that student that calm environment that says, hey, we're still here, um, because we're able to. They really didn't even see a transition, to be honest with you, because they were already on the platform. It's just when advising popped up, they say, hey, that's something great. I can click
Yeah.
to see my advisor, um, and they didn't have to wait in long lines anymore. They didn't have to, get dressed and come to campus. They could make appointments log in from home. There was no need to travel, and and everyone was safe because of COVID. So, um, it wasn't really that much of a struggle, and they were able to, make it a positive change. So I really don't think the student experienced that much of a change. They were able to say, hey, there's that link. Let me get on and talk to somebody. So, I don't think it was very much of, on the student side. It was a very pleasant experience.
That's really great to hear. It's definitely continuity is the most important thing for students. What about the staff side of things? So, you said they obviously have those perks of being able to flex their hours. They didn't have to get dressed to come in. But were there any processes that you guys changed, maybe in like reporting or in communication, that really helped you adjust to the new kind of way of doing things?
Um, well, being more proactive we tend to be a more reactive school, but now we're not. We're a more proactive school. So, like with those new students coming in, we wanted, to, like the new student orientation. We talked about Upswing, so we had to make some changes because normally they don't learn about Upswing until they get into the classes. But because we were doing advising, we put Upswing in the very beginning when you start talking to students about admissions and enrollment.
Yeah.
Um, that that was a big change, so that we could start advising students even before they registered.
Mm,
So, and that also made a change because normally students don't get their email because we use emails as their users. So that also made a change in the admission process where those emails had to be created early in that interaction with students,
hmm.
which also led for that way they could also start tracking, um, students that some students don't finish the admission process, but if they got that email earlier, then they started answering. So it did make that we didn't lose as many students during that enrollment process,
Mm.
because we did have that connection with Upswing where they were able to start talking even before they were enrolled in classes.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know enrollment has definitely been a huge challenge for so many schools with the whole summer melt dip and being exacerbated, by COVID. Um, how would you say that aspect compared to previous years, right? Kind of balancing out the effect of COVID plus having the communication via email a little bit sooner.
We were very worried about our retention, rate, plummeting. But you know, dealing with what we dealt with, we did not see that plummet,
Wow.
because that communication was open, whether it was using Upswing or having that face to face on Upswing or um, making other adjustments. Um, we just didn't really see what some of our sister schools saw, um, with retention when we still haven't seen it. We're holding our own with enrollment, but considering the circumstances,
Yeah.
um, I think we've done very well compared to some of the other schools, which, that some of the schools, they lost like 30% of their enrollment, where ours has dipped down to maybe, 5 to 6%.
That's really great, all things considered, for sure. The last thing I want to ask on this point is just about the things that have kind of stayed the same. So, you mentioned there's the same kind of student interaction. You're gonna still do the advising, but is there anything else that you thought maybe would have changed that didn't end up changing despite all the uncertainty?
The, well, with the online advising, you still have that personal interaction, and that making that relationship with the student early in their education, it does make a difference because you could still make a student feel comfortable in a virtual setting, just like they're sitting in your office. So that did remain the same.
Awesome. So, what about how you're using Upswing this spring? Has anything changed from 2020 to 2021? And what's your strategy looking like for engaging them, engaging the students in services like advising and tutoring that are on our platform?
Our appointments and upswing are the priorities, whether if you're an advisor or a tutor, because when students make appointments, advisors know, hey, I can look this student's academic record so I can prepare for the meeting. And the same with the tutors. Most we found that, and then we've done a little experiment with this. Like when a student logs in for tutoring, they tend to want to have a tutor that looks like them or that, they're same age or something. Because I had one really good math tutor. He was an older gentleman, and he never got picked. So we changed his picture to like a koala bear. Well, then he started to get picked.
Oh,
So um, the appointments in upswing. I sort of digress there, but the appointments in upswing and um, those are our priority with advisors, and because you can plan your day out, the day to day, life varies with upswing. During our busy times, your advisors and the tutors may be booked
yeah.
solidly, and well as answering messages, because Upswing does have, where you can answer messages back and forth with students.
Hmm.
And some students, they don't even want to see you; they just want to send a quick message and so sign up for appointment, and that works really well with Upswing because you can answer those quick questions. Even with the tutors, they can answer those quick questions, and then the student gets what they need.
For sure, for sure. And what about you personally in your role? What does your kind of day to day look like on Upswing?
I stay on Upswing. I mostly, I look to see because we do limit some students because some students will just use only how many hours a week. But we do have, a guideline where students are each student receives 2 hours a week. Well,
Mhm.
um, because of COVID, we had increased some of that to 4 hours a week because
Okay.
of the situation. So
Yeah.
I watch that and also watch the advising side. Because you can check on your workers, your coworkers, and making sure everybody's doing their part. The other day we noticed that in the advising side that one of the particular advisors was getting all the appointments. So I was like, what is going on? Why is she getting all the appointments? So we scrambled the order up a little bit.
Mm.
So sometimes students would just click on the first name they see. So what we ended up doing was adding a little description to their names, like Sarah from the Coweta campus, or this advisor does really well with healthcare students or something. So that sort of that worked really well. So that advisor was not, they were not just clicking the first person they saw.
Right.
They actually looked at the list and looked at what advisor would choose them or meet their needs the best. So we have I do watch that a lot. Um, on the tutoring side,
Hmm.
we have started tutors. are now comfortable sending messages back and forth between to the students where they can, like a student doesn't show up, the tutor can say, "Hey, I missed you. What's going on? You didn't show
Yeah,
up today," things like that. So they're able to communicate, just by short messages. Um, and normally they come back, or the students don't. They feel like, the tutor's time is very important, and their time is very important too. They'll normally respond and, make another appointment, or we don't penalize students, for missing appointments or anything like that. We
sure.
we do encourage them to make another appointment, and that's what I watch. I watch to see, um, and make sure. And sometimes I do check the tutors, because one good thing with Upswing is you can grade. Supposedly, it's not. It's like you give the tutor 1 through 5.
Mhm.
If the student puts the tutor as a 2 or 3 or 1, I want to find out what's going on, and also vice versa. So the tutor is also able to, grade the student's comprehension on something. Um, so I do watch that a lot. If a tutor puts in, she's a 1, didn't know anything, blah blah blah. We really need to look at that student to see what's going on. So that that grading system, means a lot, and I do watch that.
Okay, that's awesome and super helpful, I'm sure, for some folks who may have not delved into that as much. Um, Anything that has surprised you, perhaps, in the past year that you didn't really think was going to become a part of your process? Like, I was surprised by the, changing your order of your advisors around. But was there anything that surprised you?
Well, I was sort of surprised that some advisors don't like being on camera. It was really
Mm,
hard getting them going.
yeah,
They're just not comfortable. But and we talked about, things they can, do to make. So we started. We have a Slack account, so we communicate with each other through Slack a lot, um, and we talk to each other more often, um, so that we can support each other. And now, we say, okay, what else do you think about this? Something like that. Now everybody's confident on camera. Um, I do find that sometimes we need to make sure that students do understand that, we don't access Upswing 24/7 like tutors do.
sure.
So we still do have business hours, that apply, to respond to messages and for appointments. But
Hmm.
that flexibility for working from home. We've just recently been sitting back home, last week, so I
Wow.
do have some. There's some advisors that are home now, some that are on campus, um,
Okay.
and we'll be like that until, um, they're gonna make another decision February 1st. So, I do know that, I would not think, that advisors would like working late, but when you can take a break at the end of the day, just to kids bed or whatever, you come back out at night. It's made that flexibility for the students. So that somewhat surprised me.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think any of us could really have predicted, the impact that always being on camera, would have. And that just added shift in our work life balance, but that totally makes sense. Now, let's go back to the faculty for a second because I want to know what the impact has been on your classrooms. Are there any strategies that your faculty has been implementing in order to use Upswing or get your students to use Upswing?
Oh yeah, the faculty, once they went through this, we had to go through this like buy-in process where
Right.
they started supporting online tutoring, encouraging students to tutor it. They view Upswing as more of supplemental instruction as
Hmm.
an extension to the course, so it's not punitive. And I'll give you an example. The nursing tutors or the nursing, teachers or nursing faculty, um, like when a student, we have a policy, the student has to have a 75% on exams in order to remain in the course. So if we've got a student with a 74 below, that faculty must meet with that student. Upswing is brought up then, and they're encouraged. It's part of like a care plan for that student. They also have other resources that they have to do. They have They use nurse cam and some other things with testing. But once they upswing is the end of that plan, it's where they meet with that upswing tutor and they go over test questions because we find a lot of our nursing students have they know the material back and front, but it's the critical thinking skills
Mm,
that is lacking. So that upswing, most of all of them, well, all the nursing, they've got master's degree, and most of them are faculty that are on the upswing.
okay.
Um, they're able to show that student, yes, there's two answers that are correct, but this answer is the best answer. So for the nursing students, we use it as sort of like a supplemental extension. We also use it with our English department. The English department faculty, because now we're sort of like an open enrollment school, so we don't, or TCSC, we don't, require ACT test or
Okay.
SAT or um, there's no any kind of testing. There used to be, but as of COVID, we don't do that.
Right.
So at times, you've got a student that may, in a normal situation, have tested learning support.
Mm,
So we've got students entering college level English classes and not necessarily being prepared. So the English department faculty has made Upswing a mandatory supplemental instruction tool for students to use before they submit their first writing assignment.
okay.
So the student in like 1101 English, which is usually the first course for a 1010, they cannot proceed into the course without that first contact with the tutor. So students are able to book appointments with, we have writing tutors, we facilitate writing tutors, and also upswing writing tutors.
Yeah.
And if they can't, book that appointment, they can use that submit an assignment module to get their
Mm,
written feedback.
yeah.
So it makes the student, I've seen it several times, students, and sometimes they use more than one tutor. They'll go submit their essay, get the essay back, and then want to make a face-to-face appointment in order
Mm,
to get that other feedback. And
yeah.
especially with like healthcare students, because they're all the healthcare students are competitive selection, so they must have A's in order to get into some of these programs. Um, so it keeps those students from repeating that class because
Yeah.
if they are prepared up front, um, and they also they can earn that higher grade. The same pretty much with the math. Our math students, um, there's no entrance test, so once they get into that college algebra, they're tested by the math teacher.
Hmm.
Same instance here, you know, all of our math faculty, full-time math faculty are in Upswing. So they're able to provide that supplemental instruction to those students that don't do well on that interest or on their first math test.
Right.
So the math, both the math and English are they're very high on our priority here. Accounting also, we do have accounting students. Accounting is a very difficult subject. We do have two West Georgia Tech accounting tutors. The, they do the same thing, the accounting faculty. If they see they don't do first well in that first test, they automatically, hey, you've got to go see the tutor. The students are contacted, early alerts are sent, and then we're starting to call those students. So
Yeah.
that's how the interaction. So we've had several faculty, that have several different departments that are using Upswing inside the classroom, mostly for supplemental instruction.
Gotcha. That's awesome. And it goes right along with what you said previously about being proactive, those early interventions. So that makes a whole lot of sense to me. So this is kind of the last one here from me before we turn it over to our audience. So audience, as you're listening and sending in questions, please continue to send us your questions because we will be taking those in just a moment. But one from me here. The pandemic has been going on for almost a year, and we kind of know a little bit more of what to expect now, because it seems like it's gonna keep going for a while. You just said, you guys just got sent back home again. So, what are you looking at to measure success this spring?
Well, we're having a meeting Thursday to determine, because so many different departments have used Upswing and other technology services. And we've been sort of working in our own little bubble. So we're having an we call it our strategic planning meeting Thursday,
Yeah.
so that we could, come up with a plan. Upswing is one of the tools that we use. Of course, we'll continue to use it for advising, because and most of our students now are online. Even our student classes have been sent home. Um, so we'll just continue to use it for advising, because we really don't just we don't when we're doing our numbers, we don't say, okay, if I sent online, I did this one face to face. We look at advising as an overall. Um,
Right. Yeah.
one thing we've been sort of talking about, is looking at, especially online platforms, is how we communicate with students. Um, how to be successful. Sometimes it's really hard, um, to offer a student how to be polite and nice, all that kind of stuff. When you do
Mhm.
face to face, it's a little easier, but in a virtual setting, there's a difference between, being nice and being kind.
Yeah.
Um, so part of our measure of success is not to be nice, to be kind in a virtual setting. So, and being kind is where, students, you have to do some kind of deliberate act or behavior and just not be polite. So, another measure that we're looking at is, once you have that meeting with that student, send them a quick message and Upswing. Hey, had a great meeting today. Don't forget, this is what we talked about. So we're looking at doing things like that, where you're not just, don't cut that contact off.
Yeah.
You make a conscious effort, to maybe your tone of your voice, or the calmness of your conversation, or, um, looking at maybe, a phone call. We've done that before too.
Hmm.
But not, we're going to, we're gearing in that way, where you just don't have a meeting with a student where we normally do and they're gone. We want to follow up with something. So that's one major thing we're, hoping to start, you know, to help measure success this spring semester.
For sure. That makes a lot of sense. And follow up is so key,
Yeah.
in continuing to keep the students engaged. Um, I really, really appreciate you sharing all these best practices and just your, boots on the ground experience with our audience. I know everyone is really appreciative of just hearing another perspective. That does officially conclude our moderated discussion here, but I see there's been some things popping up into the chat box, and I would again encourage everyone to ask any questions that you do have, and I will be relaying them. And I wanted to do a quick plug for our survey real quick before we get into audience Q&A. So this is the third installment of our COVID conversation series. And obviously, Ms. Crockett has been a fantastic addition to this series. And we really would like some feedback on how you have enjoyed this series, any other topics that you would like to hear from our network of partners and on Upswing's behalf, and any feedback that you have for us. So to that end, everyone will be getting an email at the end of this presentation and webinar, and it will have a survey attached, and the first 25 people to complete the survey as our nice little incentive will actually receive a $10 Amazon gift card. So that's our little plug right there for our feedback survey. I would really appreciate to hear anything that anyone has to share with us so that we can continue to make this even better and more valuable as we go on. And I see that Kim has so graciously shared her contact information as well. So if you would like to get in contact with her and ask any more questions one-on-one, you are able to do that as well. So now I want to go into our audience Q&A, and it looks like our first question is more about the faculty. So can you go a little bit more in depth, Kim, on how the faculty are on the platform using Upswing for that supplemental instruction?
Um, well, it's like I said, a lot of, if you've got a student that's struggling, a lot of the faculty has made it it's in the syllabus. Um, so, and it says in there, if you make a certain, this is with like some of the healthcare students, if you make a certain grade up between, it's a mandatory thing. It's mandatory for nursing students. It's mandatory for the English department. Um, some of the accounting teachers are using it, so um, they just made it part of the class. And the students, they're not penalized. They may not be able to move on to the next lesson, which I guess that sort of is penalized, but you know, because they want them to grasp whatever the concept is. Because a lot of some of these classes, especially with like math or English, one topic builds on another topic. So, until they understand that first topic, there's no way they can move to the second topic. So that's how some of the faculty are using Upswing.
Gotcha. Thanks. I see a quick clarifying one in here. Um, Essentially, it sounds like you're saying this is like mandatory tutoring that the students need to participate in order to continue with the class. Is that correct?
In some instances, yes, because if they don't see, because like if it's a nursing student, you know, they're not gonna, if they don't pull that grade up, of course, it would be somewhat mandatory because we want them to use every resource available. Upswing's just a part of that. They've got other, technologies that those students can use. Um, but we've really never had any, student that absolutely did not want to use it or did not want to use the platform because, our teachers are on there. So, if a student really wants to do well, they're going to ask the teacher. That's how they contact the teachers because our teachers are not here. They're not in the classroom. They are
Right.
home. So that makes want to contact that teacher.
For sure. Okay. Thank you so much for clarifying that. So the next question looks like it's asking more about the um, the reporting side of things. When students um, are meeting with an advisor or meeting with a tutor, you had mentioned there's the 1 to 5 and all of that. Can you talk a little bit more about what your best practice is with those sorts of reports and how you guys use those?
Um, of the rating system that's an upswing, if a student like like grades a tutor like a 1 or 2, and it's our tutor, I'll call. Or even if it's an upswing tutor, I'll call my representative from upswing, and we try to find out what happened. I I really think having student feedback and having tutors feedback on the student is very important because that's where there may be something that's not right or something that's going on or um, we hopefully, not lose that student. So the grading system, that the feedback, I mean, that's how we operate, is looking at that feedback. So it's very important. And sometimes, a tutor forgets to put the feedback. So I get on the phone, start calling. I said, hey, I said, why is this feedback not in here? I said, that's really important.
Yeah.
And with the nursing department, that's they use that feedback. Say, okay, you didn't understand this concept. We're going to go back in the classroom and learn this again. So, we're able to share that feedback. So, in the nursing teachers have done that. If they've had, you know, when the nursing students met with that tutor and that they scored them low, that triggered, hey, maybe to that faculty member, maybe I need to go back over drug calculations or whatever the concept is.
Yeah.
So that feedback is very important.
Okay. Thank you for that. So it looks like we have another question following up on, you had touched on there's like a meeting where you guys are going to be talking about your strategic planning and your goals for this semester. And someone wants to know organizationally, what does that look like? Like, is your department underneath student affairs leadership, or which um, larger umbrella is kind of leading this strategic charge for you guys?
The strategic plan, the enrollment comes from student affairs, but we are academic affairs.
Okay.
So we're totally, two separate entities. And that's very unusual for a school to have advisors. A lot of times they'll put advising in the student affairs, but our president is very much wants um, the academic to see the student as soon as possible. Um, so that's one reason, we're an extension of really the faculty.
Mhm.
We do this thing we call them secrets and seal advising plans,
Yeah.
where the day the student meets with us, they've got their sheet and they know what classes are mapped out for the rest of the time here. Um, and that's done in the academic side. That's not done in student affairs. So we're a little different than some colleges because I know some colleges it's vice versa.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. And follow up on that, um, is there a differentiation between academic advising and student success at West Georgia Tech, or is that really um, under the same wheelhouse?
It's in the same wheelhouse because tutoring is part of advising and tutoring and um, you know it meets hand in hand because a lot of times the advisors know more than the tutors or vice versa. So and sometimes advisors say, hey, I got a student and because we're all in the same department, it's really easy to send that student over or make that advising appointment or vice versa. Because whatever it takes, to get the student um, whatever access they need to whatever the location, we want to be, the quickest way there. And that's one reason, we have like a 1-800 number with advising. Um, we have a phone line that we all, answer the phone, and it could be any kind of question. But those
Mm.
academic advisors, you're not going to get bounced around. You're going to get sent to the right, correct person. So each advisor, we know pretty much all the programs. So, and most of the advisors that we have, they've been here a very long time. So, we very rarely, we a lot of times when the jobs are open, we want somebody with that advising experience. We
Mm.
very rarely hire somebody that does not have that advising experience or that has not worked in a faculty um, or a college setting. So
Okay, thanks. That makes a lot of sense for how you guys operate. Okay, so the next question looks like it's asking about best practices during a session. You had mentioned some post-session best practices like following up with the student, but what about while they're actually meeting? What do you usually advise your staff to do?
We always be positive because, especially right now, students are under tremendous amount of stress. We've really looked at, when we're on camera, make sure it's a quiet, when there's no interruptions, pay really close attention, what's on your screen or what the student sees. Um, and just be aware that because they're all under a amount of stress, you're not going to be able to solve all their problems. Um, there's all the things going on in the country. We want the students to have a virtual place that's comfortable
Mm,
where their concerns are being heard. And we also recommend headphones.
mm,
Most of our advisors do have headphones so that the student can hear clearly to use their advising appointments. We do recommend a time limit. Our appointments in Upswing vary from 15 to 30 minutes. And the advisor should be able to answer all questions within this time frame because when you start going over 30 minutes, the students are not going to remember what you said. And
mm.
then it's okay to schedule a second meeting. And especially with healthcare students, we sometimes recommend that they schedule a second meeting. You give them their sequencing plan, you give them their information, and say, hey, you look over this, think about it, and then make another appointment and write down your questions. So they're very much encouraged. Healthcare students, because we've got, RN, we've got LPN, we've got medical assistant, we've got surgical tech, we've got radiology. You're dealing with several surgical tech, many programs. They're encouraged to make advising appointments at least twice a semester.
Mm.
And all we do is go over, hey, how's this going? What's going on in this class? 'Cause, there's several things they've got to do. They have to have their before they compete, get competitive selection. So we really want them to make sure because the deadlines, if they miss the deadline, then they're waiting a whole year. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure they clearly understand, the deadlines and what's going to be expected of them, like teeth testing or there's all different programs have different entrance exams. That time limit is really important. Another thing we have already talked about this is um, vary the when you see the list of advisors, scramble it up every once in a while because we found that most students do. They don't already have a relationship with that advisor. They're going to pick the first name on the first list. So that advisor tends to be seen more often. So we do that probably. Always just started doing that. So we're hoping, and now it is working because one of the students, one of the advisors it's on the top now, starting to see more students. So,
Yep.
um, and we just, put some friendly information in there that, say, hey, we put them by campus, we put them by, you know, what, um, what they, what they're really good at.
Hmm.
Because, it's got all kinds of, and that's when you can put all kinds of attributes like, this advisor is really good with data web, or this advisor is really good with degree works advisement or whatever other kind of things that we can put in there. Just make that that category list very concise because sometimes students just want a small question answered. So looking at the category list when you're making your profile is really important too.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. Those are some really helpful tips there. So I just have a couple more, and then it looks like we'll be done unless anyone else has more questions after this in the chat. And the next one is really about agility. You've got some accolades in the chat here, just for how well your team has transitioned to virtual slash online. And someone wants to know, how do you manage? How do you handle the constant change and like uncertainty that this situation is causing?
I've been here 19 years. So, um, um, we've seen trends in education, change for, um, you know, many, many years where, um, sometimes our enrollment busted out the seams when the economy's not doing good or whatever. You just have to adapt. And, like I said, we were scrambling for 2 or 3 days and not knowing what to do, and then just meeting together. And this department is most colleges, student affairs doesn't even talk to academic affairs most times, but you know we're all in the same boat, so we had to talk to each other.
Yeah.
So piecing different technologies together, we were able to, and sharing upswing with different other departments. You just got to get through it, and because the students have to get through it. So if you're calm and they see that confidence and that ability to adapt, they will be able to adapt also. So
Mhm.
that's how we're doing it.
That's really admirable. And, I think that's a note that so many schools are going to be taking home is just that communication for the sake of the students, right? Like, 'cause I think cross department communication can be so hard. But at the end of the day, who you're doing it for is the students. So that's awesome. And then the last one I have here, again, unless anyone puts any last minute question into the chat, is uh, is really asking for the future, right? How do you see things playing out post COVID? What lessons are you going to be taking into whatever the world looks like after this is kind of all over?
We're definitely going to stay with Upswing or in some other technologies in order, because I do think it has made, even in our department, we were, like I said, we were 5 different campuses. We rarely ever saw each other. But now, since we've had Upswing, we communicate all the time. Um, it has really made, because as we're all, communicating within departments, it has really made a better college for all of our students. So um,
That's awesome.
we just plan for the next, say, 3 to 5 years to look at technology, um, and we may, hopefully we'll be back in the classroom soon, but you
Yeah.
know I do think that our online campus is going to grow crazy because of technologies like Upswing and some of the other ones that we use. Um, but and then you still have your traditional students, so which they're still using, technology too. A lot of we, you know, we use Blackboard systems, so now our
Hmm.
college has made it, mandatory for teachers to put the grades in, as soon as the students earn it.
Yeah.
Um, so, that was a huge deal. But, some teachers, you know, not, they could grade the work, but, some students would go 3 or 4 weeks and not know what they had in the class. We're now, since the pandemic, um, you know, technology has been put as a priority. So it's
Yeah.
Upswing's part of that. So I do think that it can only make us a better school.
Thanks. That's really awesome feedback. And I think you're so right that the importance and priority of technology and just the ability to do things online is definitely gonna stay in some form or another. So I definitely appreciate and agree with you on that one. Um, that looks like it is the end of our questions. I don't see any last minute ones in the chat here. So I do want to again say thank you so much, Kim, for taking the time out to share with everyone listening here and really just, again, give that perspective of another administrator who's right there actually doing it every single day and working through, all the challenges that this pandemic has brought. Um, thank you Also, to everyone who's out there participating with us and asking questions, we really appreciate your engagement here. And finally, quick reminder, please do fill out that survey when you get a chance to. We would love to hear your feedback, and you might even win a $10 gift card. So there's a little incentive for you there. We'll be sending out the recording, so if anyone got on late or had to drop off early, you will be able to still listen to the entire conversation. And we hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye.